Okay, well, we're going to stick with a police-related topic. It is Pride Month, and so the question is, with everything going on in the world today, what role should the police have in future Pride celebrations? So some activists are actually calling for a ban on Pride marches. This isn't the first time this has come up in the past, and in order for Pride marches to return to their roots as an act of rebellion, particularly against police violence. So what do we think? Should the police have a role at Pride?
Cynthia, that's an interesting thing that you bring up in terms of Pride starting as a response to police violence. The first brick was thrown in 1969 by a Black trans woman in response to police harassment and violence that was happening in New York City at Stonewall Inn at that time. So, there's a long history. I think that when we are at our best, in any community, we are searching for ways to find empathy with others. And sometimes shared experience can lead to that. So within the LGBTQ community, there are very important Black voices, Black stories, Black faces. And there are layers of violence that have been historic and proven in terms of our Black brothers and sisters within our community and our Black trans community. So we have to look at how to make everyone feel safe in these environments. And I think that the ongoing conversation between Pride organizers and law enforcement has always been really focused on uniform wearing at the Pride Parade, because we have to acknowledge that there are LGBTQ people who work within police forces who have a desire to participate in Pride. I think the big question has always really been, should they be participating in uniform? Because those uniforms symbolize a great deal of pain for members of our own community, as well as communities outside of the LGBTQ culture.
Oh, Tommy, I totally agree with what you're saying, that the question of uniform is sort of paramount. I kind of see it as the police are not invited to this party in their uniforms because, as you said, historically, they have failed to adequately protect this community that especially needs protection. But you are still invited to do your job, which is to protect and maintain order at Pride-related events. And right now, that service might be more essential than ever because there are people in this country who are anti-gay. There are people in this country who are racist. And among those anti-gay and racist people, there are people who are militant and hateful and agitators. And they showed up last year at a Pride event in Hamilton. And the sad reality is that it wouldn't surprise me, which is really sad, if they wouldn't continue to show up in now and in the future.
Yeah, you raise a really interesting point. Lainey and I were on a float last year at Pride, and we were representing our company, and it was an honor to do so. But there were a lot of people there. And it did cross my mind when we were going down Yonge Street. I couldn't help but think of the tragedy that happened when someone took a van and ran into people on that very same street earlier last year. I have a lot of thoughts, and I ultimately just think, though, that you have to listen to the people who are triggered, who are in the community, who are triggered by police presence, and start to unpack why that is. And it does go back to the history of what Tommy was talking about. And, in Toronto in particular, it's about the lack of protection that was given when there was a serial killer that was on the loose, the lack of consideration that was given to that case, and so on. I will say, Anita on Twitter wrote us to say, yes, police should march, but out of uniform and off-duty. There are LGBTQ police, and they can help address the problems experienced by their culture from inside the system as people who have lived the experience personally. I guess it's just, I don't think there's one easy answer to this, and I don't think I'm certainly the person who's going to be able to put something forward that is the answer.
We have another Twitter comment from Christina. Christina writes, I think true good police should march at Pride parades and also walk in the Black Lives Matter protests. We need them to be included in this and rebuild their relationships with these communities. We can't just completely abolish them because of some really bad apples. Christina, thank you for this. I want to just take a minute though to address the bad apples argument. This is the argument that has been raised by a lot of people who would defend the police. The bad apples argument has been dismantled many times by activists, both from the LGBTQ community and from the Black community, because it's not just bad apples, it's an institution. The entire structure of law enforcement right now is being examined because its foundation, many people consider to be rotten. It is founded upon white supremacy. It is definitely, the training that's involved is a predator trainer first, as opposed to a helper trainer mentality. John Oliver did a great takedown on it on Last Week Tonight, which everybody should watch. So, Christina, I hear what you're saying, and I think that there's a good, it comes from a good place, but the bad apples argument only reinforces that police don't need reform. And right now, the discussion has to be on police reform.